Hello,
Hello.
hello, hello. It's
Welcome.
Crafty Kris.
So we clearly didn't coordinate this well. So welcome to Learning Live, and I will turn everything over to Kris.
Sorry about that. I guess I got unmuted or I was anyway. Hello, nice to see you. Tonight I'm going to be talking a little bit about stamping foam. I'm sure if you've been in the store lately, you have seen this on our product shelf in the mixed media stamping and ink area. And I just wanted to go over a little bit about it, some care things, and a couple of ideas of what you can do to get started with it, and a little bit of a surprise at the end. So as for what stamping foam is, it is simply a block of foam. So it's squishy foam and it's very densely packed foam. And we have four different types in the store. We have the small rectangles, which comes in a pack of 4. And we have the large rectangles, which look like this without the shape in the center, which come in a pack of 2. And then we have these 2 large rectangles that have pop-out centers. One is a circle and the other one is a heart. And these come in a 2-pack. And so there's a multiple amount of things that you can do with these, but I just want to show you a few tonight and give you some tips and tricks around using them to make sure that they last for a while. It is not a product that will last forever, but it will last a long time if you take good care of it. So these items, whether it be the large or the small, the larger piece is a little bit narrower. Both of them fit on a 4 by 4 1/4 by 5 card. This one gives you, let me just pull out. Oh, it would have been helpful for me to have my paper here. Sorry. I'm just doing a quick cut. I thought I was all prepared. Let me just do a couple of cuts here very quickly. So a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch sheet is your standard size for your A4 cards. There's one. And there's 2. There we go. And you can see that when I put my foam on it, I can have a large border with the small rectangle, and the larger rectangle covers the entire sheet. So it is the exact same size as a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch sheet. So those 2 options are available with the regular stamping foam. And then when you get to the larger sized foams with your circles and your hearts, they go beyond that for to a size, but the idea around that is so that your pattern goes right to the edges. So enough about that. The foam itself can be used for cards, with or without borders, as I showed you, in layouts, in junk art journals, and in other projects that you want to have some sort of a stamped image. The light gray color makes it easy to see where your ink is, and it doesn't get messy like clear stamps or some of the white product stamping materials that get stained. So this doesn't get stained quite as easily or as quickly, of course, depending on what kind of ink you use. It cleans up really easily with water when you're using water-based inks. If you're using other kinds of inks, you'll be required to do a proper cleanup with the solution for that particular ink. And you want to be careful because this is a foam product. You'll want to do a little test of the solution on the back or on the corner just to see if it affects the foam at all. And if it does, that would be a cleaner you do not want to use. The other thing is you can heat these with any kind of heat tool. I'm using the Ranger Heat It craft tool, but you can use any of the wand tools, whether they have a multiple heat setting or not. And it doesn't matter what heat tool you use. The hotter the heat tool, the less time you'll need to heat the surface. But and the cooler, the longer you'll need to heat the surface. You can use your hands to apply pressure once you've got whatever it is you're stamping on. You can use your hands to apply pressure. You can attach your block by using a little bit of tacky tape, low tack tape. You can attach it to the surface of a block and use that for your pressure. You can even go as far as, if this isn't giving you enough pressure, you can also use a pressure tool. So just to rub on top when you're heating it. Okay, so let me get started with the demonstration. The first thing I'm going to start with is a red rubber stamp from Hero Arts. I think it's one from last year. It's dots, nice surface. You want something that has a bit of a texture on it, because the least amount of texture you have is the least amount of detail you're going to get. I made these kind of small, so I'm just going to make them a little bigger. There we go. Get that positioned on there. Okay. So what would be the reasons for using a red rubber stamp to make a stamping foam? It kind of sounds like an oxymoron, but it isn't. So what happens when you create a stamp from an already existing stamp is you get what's called a reverse image. So where this has the dots showing up as your black ink on the surface, you will see that when we do it, the dots will be white and the in-between sections will be whatever color I apply to the stamping foam. So that's one reason. And it also can take an outline stamp and create, with an outline stamp, you print and you see the black image of whatever it is that the drawing is. Whereas when you have a stamping foam, that now turns into a white and untreated area. And there are a couple of other techniques you can do with just that, that idea of that white in between areas. So the white is now the outline. And so let me show you what I mean by it by giving you a demo. So basically, I'm right-handed, and I want to make sure that I'm going to stamp on the foam with my stronger hand, because that gets the pressure down quickly. You can't really take your time between heating it up and putting it on the block. You want to heat it up immediately, putting it on the block when you're done and putting your pressure down. You don't want to wait around for a few minutes or put your thing down, pick it up and go over, because it will lose heat and then it won't give you the best impression. So don't wait around. So I'm just going to do this now. And I'm counting in my head about 20 seconds. And I'm putting force on it and rocking it a bit so that I can get a really nice impression. And there you have it. Look how nice that impression is. So now I have the positive and I have the negative of the stamp, and I can play around with those on one piece. Tonight I'm just going to use this stamp, and I'm going to apply some inks to it to show you what it looks like in the reverse. Now, this I did, same stamp. I did this, what's today? Tuesday? I did this on Sunday. So it really holds its stamped image until you heat that up to make it disappear. So you can have a number of uh, let's say cards that you're making, not get them done and not worry about losing the image of the stamp before you're done. You can leave it for a couple of days and go back to it. So now I'm using tonight some distress ink. And I should tell you a couple of things about inking. When you're doing and applying your ink to the stamp pad, you want to make sure that you're pressing down. Why don't I just show you? You're pressing down and you're swirling. You're not tapping. Tapping is for when you have line stamps or rubber stamps. You're trying to put the ink on the surface. This, we're trying to rub the ink so that it gives full coverage. So you just rub it down as you see I've done there. And if you wanted to, you could go over this ink and get into the little pocky parts, but I'll explain more about that later. So I'm just going to rub the top and the bottom of this. Now, I go over the ink from one color to the other color, so I tend to try to start with the lighter colors, moving to the darker colors. If you want a better blend than what happens when you just put the colors together, you can use some kind of a foam blender or a brush blender and just blend the two things together. Maybe I'll do that. So just take any kind of foam blender and just move it around so it blends a little bit between the two colors. There we go. So it's a less harsh line. All right, now we've been playing around with this for a while. So it's actually been drying as I've been working with it, and we have to revitalize it. So you're going to take your distress sprayer. Now, a couple of things you need to know about spraying. There's, with inks themselves, sorry, my notes are falling down here. With inks themselves, they have a different technique. Distress inks are different than Gina K inks, let's say. So they all react differently to water. And if it's a water reactive ink, and also your pigment inks and things will react differently as well. So you want to get to know your inks. And if you have a specific outcome that you want to see. I don't. I love using the distress because it's always, I have a vague idea of what I'm going to get, but it's always a nice surprise. And they are water reactive. So with water reactive dyes, you've got two options to spray. If you spray, you should always spray at least a foot away from the block. So we're at least this far away from the block. If you want to have your image colored and not have it watery, but just have it like ink impressed on paper, then you're going to want to do what I like to call a walkthrough. So I'll spray, and while it's in the mist is in the air, I bring my block through it rather than spraying onto my block. So I spray and draw my ink through the mist. If you want a watercolory look, then you're going to spray directly onto the block. So I'm going to do a misty one first. And I have to do it off camera because I'm actually going to have my arms farther apart than you're going to see, and I don't want to wet everything. So I'm just going to do a walkthrough. So I'm going to spray the air, and then I'm going to pull my block through the mist. So if you can see, there's a slight little bit, oh, it's hard to see. There's a slight little bit of water on it. So I'm going to do it one more time. Okay, now I'm going to turn it upside down and press. And I want to rock it because it's a lot more dense than regular foam. I want to make sure I get my colors everywhere. And there we go. Okay. Now you can see little dots because that is the nature of the distress ink. It dots up when it gets moist. Okay, if you want to avoid that distress look, then you would use a different kind of ink. You would use like a dye ink or a Gina K or something like that. So I'm going to redo my block, and then I'm going to show you the watercolory one where I directly spray right on the block. Say that fast 4 times. Whew.
Kris, if I can interrupt, I've got a couple of questions.
Sure.
Margaret is asking, will the rocking not smudge the ink or the image?
Nope. I'm not rocking horrendously. I'm just rocking to make sure that the corner tips, which I have less control over, you have a better control over the straight edges when you're putting pressure down. So when I rock, I'm just trying to rock to the corners to make sure that they come clear as well.
Thank you. And then
Okay.
Ellen asked if she only has the embossing tool, not the Ranger tool, can the foam be burned? So
The embossing tool, I'm not sure what that is. Is that the wand?
the wand, yes.
Yes. No, you just okay, so this is a diffuser type heat gun. So it gives you heat more out from the centers. If you're using the wand, I would not do this. I would do this. So you keep the wand moving quickly. Okay? With the diffuser, I can sit there and do it a little bit slower because the heat isn't as intense. But with the wand, just keep it moving. You can use any heat gun, any heat wand, or the diffusing type version like I have, as long as you keep it moving.
Thank you. Great tips.
And you only count to 20. Like it doesn't need a lot to get that impression. All right, so now I've been chatting, which is great. I'm not gonna do any smudging in between because now this is actually dry to the surface, but I'm gonna show you how to do the watercolor. Now remember with this one, I sprayed into the air and then I brought my block through the spray. So I didn't spray directly on it from a foot away. I sprayed the air from a foot away and brought the block to it so that I could get a nice, even sort of play of ink. Now I'm going to do it the opposite way. So again, I'm still going to be that foot away minimum, but I'm going to spray right onto the block and you'll see the difference. So, well, maybe you won't see the difference. Oh, I did a really good spray doing that. Hang on. I actually do want some water on there. Okay, so now you can see, or maybe not, some water in there. And when I push this down on the paper now, it'll be more watery because it's water reactive ink. And again, I'm rocking it to get the corners to touch in. Now, can you see the difference between the two things? This is still drying, but it's much more watercolory than this is. The lines are much crisper on this side and much more watercolory. Now, there's so many different techniques you could do at this point. You can now go back in and you can flick ink on it. You can add more spray drops on it to diffuse it even more. But those will, maybe we'll go over if we have time at the end, or maybe another class. There is a class already put up on the website. I'll talk more about that near the end. So you can see that the watery coloriness of the one where I sprayed directly and got water droplets on it. And this is the walkthrough where all I got was the mist just to activate it in little tiny dots. Now I will color this off. I'll wipe this off. It takes no work at all to wipe this off. So you know me, I have my dirty cloths everywhere. So I'm just going to wet it and wipe it. And I'm going to wet it again and wipe it. And look how clean it comes. There we go. So you can see this is the one that I haven't put ink on today, and this is the one that I have put ink on today. They look pretty much the same. All right. Now, how do you get from this to the next. Oh, I was going to show you how this, let's dry now. Okay, I'm going to put this upside down and show you what this looks like. Oh yeah, you got to tamp the surface of this. I've been rubbing the surface of the foam, so I've got to remember tamping is the way you go with the hard surfaces. Okay, this is the original block. Okay, so why would you do it? This is why you would do it. Two totally different looks. So this is the original stamp, and this is the reverse image. And they both look equally lovely, but it's something different. Okay. All right. Now, moving on. That was demo number 1. So I've got another demo where you can use dies to create an image. And I'm not going to stamp the images for you, but I'm going to show you how to actually do the process. So I'm just going to sit and apply my heat gun, moving it. And I'll try to get it close so you can see what's happening. Do you see how it's just sort of disappearing? You want to get it back to its original state. All right. I could even do it just a little more because I'm still seeing some stripies. There we go. So we're back to our original flat state. I want to do a die. Now, dies you can do that are already, you can do them when they're already put together as a like a collage or a smattering. But if you have 2 dies and they're supposed to go together, you can tape them down so they don't shift and shimmy on your. So there's one, and the tape won't get on my foam because my foam doesn't go that far down. Now, all dies have this little lip part on it. So I'm just going to let that lip part go over top of the lip of the other piece. So maybe I'll bring that down so you can see it better. Do you see how I've got one lip over top of the other lip? So it brings this piece a little closer together. Here, why don't I do that? There we go. Okay. And now I'm going to make a stamp out of this. I love this idea of making stamps out of things. Again, I'm right-handed, so I'm going to heat my block up this way. Now, there is a cautionary note about doing foam with your dies, and that is that if you press too hard, you'll get the shape of the outside of the die, and I'll show you what I mean by that. I'm really pushing hard. Do you see the outer edge? So this outer edge is not actually the flower or the die. It's the outer edge of the, what would you call that? The backing of the die. And you don't always want to have that when you're doing your stamping because that's going to come into your stamp. So with dies, you do not want to press as hard as you would with a stencil or a stamp. So keep that in mind. Now I'm going to heat this and do it the right way so you can see that you can actually avoid it. And look how quickly that goes back down to its normal self. There we go, back to normal. And maybe I'll heat it just a little more so I can be ready. Oh, and by the way, if you touch it when it's soft, you can actually do your fingerprints too. I've done that more than once. Okay, And now I'm just going to put regular pressure. I'm not going to overdo the pressure. Oh, even with light pressure, I got to try that again. Sorry. It takes a little bit of practice to do this. And you really don't even have to put any pressure on. I'm even putting too much pressure. Just put my finger in the middle, give it a second to kind of cool down. There we go. And now I've lost that outer edge. You see it a tiny little bit where the two dies are on top of each other, but you don't see it anywhere else. So that's something to remember when you're using dies. You want to avoid that ghost image. Okay. And is there anything else I need to tell you about that? Nope. So the two things that I've done for you, this one and using the dies, and the next one, and the next one, you can actually do on the side of your die as well. And I'll talk more about that at the end. Oops. Okay. So now the next one I'm going to show you is how you can take your stencils and turn them into stamps. And why would you want to turn a stencil into stamp? Well, stencils are not quick. It takes time to actually run through a stencil with your mediums or your inks. And to replicate it, it's much slower than if you create a stamp of it. And if you're doing multiples of it, it's much quicker. To make a stamp out of it. And again, I'm doing the corners. And there you go. Okay, so now all I have to do is stamp, ink, rather than this, dry it, this, dry it. I can do it much more quickly using the stamp than using the stencil. Not to say that you shouldn't have stencils. Stencils are great for mediums and putting textures on your page. But if you're just looking for that inked stamped image, it's easier to use a foam stamp and create that ink stamped image. Oh, again, I did it. Sorry. All right. So now I'm moving on to my fourth example. And then I'll talk about doing the side of the stamp. Okay. So I just randomly pulled some stuff out of my boxes I have lying around here because I'm a huge collector of things. And let's see. I'm just going to tape down. Oh, I can't really do it that way. I got to do it this way. I keep forgetting. You can't tape over top. You got to tape unless you're going to miss it, actually. So let me do that. So I'm going to tape there. And I'm going to tape here because I'm not going to be stamping over top of my, I'm going to stamp in this area. And then I got some of this. I think I'll do a couple of rounds of this. There we go. If you don't use low tack tape, I suggest you try it because once you try it, you won't be able to live without it. It's very handy. Actually, I'm going to cross those over in the center just because I can. And, whoops, it's not a lot of crossing, is it? There we go. It's a little more crossed. And I have this really great stuff. And I'm just going to put a piece of that down. And I'm taping it down because I don't want to have to worry about it moving around underneath the stamp. I want to be able to just go poosh, and then everything is done. Just going to get my stamp stuck on there again. Okay. Depending on how deep your pattern is and whatever it is that you are trying to get an impression of, will determine how much heat you have to have, how much pressure you have to have. Make sure I got the ends there. Now, is that cool or what? Look at that. So this now becomes its own stamp. And just because it's so cool looking, I'm going to try it. Just going to use one color.
It's kind of cool how you can use those items and then put them away. You haven't even used them up.
Nope. Those items are there for me to use on another layout, another card, whatever. You can go down to your living room chairs and do it with your living room chairs if they have an interesting texture. I have some cane chairs in the living room, and the cane would be an awesome thing to use as a texture. You just got to have whatever it is close to an outlet because you don't want to have it going. I need more in here. There we go. I'm going to do watercolory on this, so I'm going to have lots of water 1 foot away. There we go. And press down in the corners, make sure I get any pattern that's there. When you're doing the watercolor version of it, you want to hold it for a little bit so the water kind of mushes all together. Look at how beautiful that is. That's crazy. So you can do anything. You can do your keyboard of your computer, anything that can handle a tiny little bit of heat. That's all you need. So earlier I talked to you about doing things on the side of the block. I'm going to use this side. I'm just going to take off all of that color. You don't want to heat the block and flatten it before you take the color off because I wouldn't trust that the color will come off after it's revitalized. You want to be able to get into the nooks and crannies. And don't forget, the foam has been stretched. So when you flatten it out, who knows if it'll come out completely or whether or not it will get stuck in the little, I don't know what to call them, the little air pockets in the foam. So always clean before you heat. And I just want to get this flat because I'm going to use the side now. When you're flattening it out, you can stay a little bit longer than when you're heating it up. I was going way too fast there to flatten it out. This, I don't know what the heat rating is on this foam. I'm sure it's somewhere on the packaging or on the website. But when I checked what kind of heaters to use, they said you could use any heat gun. So I figured they know what they mean. All right, so this is my little phone holder. We used to have these at the store. I'm going to take an impression of the side on the side of my block. So I'm just going to heat up the side of my block. Then I'm going to force it down. And there's my texture. So now let's see what that looks like. Get my dark green. Now, this is going to be a little distressed because this area here is quite wide and I don't have a large block or a large ink pad. So the ink pad size can also make a difference in what you're doing. And I'm just going to stamp it down. Now look at the detail in that. Whoops, too far. Let me turn off my light. Look at the detail you get. It's crazy. Like total detail. Come on, come back. Focus. We had it there a second ago. There we go. Lots of detail in that. Okay, so lots of things you can do. And trust me, this is just the beginning, touching the surface. This is just using the block in its basic form. We have a class online right now. I understand that it was put up right now where we're going to be using one of the shape, the heart-shaped foam, and we are going to make 3 cards. So we have a card, one, and we're using embossing folders as our texture. So I didn't discuss embossing folders tonight, but it is in the class. And you can see that the embossing folder can be used in the positive and the negative. So there's the second card. And then the third card, we're also going to fussy cut out the embossing folder as well. So in the kit is $27. The class is $27 and includes your kit. You'll get your foam. You'll get 2 embossing folders. Sherry, can you help me with what else is in there?
I think the only other thing is extra paper.
Oh, and the paper. Yes, the paper to make your cards and the card bases as well. So if you're interested in that, it's March 23rd at 7 o'clock. The kits are online right now. I don't know that there's a, if there's how many there are, but if I were you, I would go quickly. Oh, and I popped this one up. And sign up. So that's it for the actual Learning Live tonight. I hope to see you in March and we can play out a little more with this. And if there's an interest and you like what's going on here and you want to know more, please let us know by email or by text and or by messenger, and we'll get some more classes in the mix for you. Okay.
So for anyone else who is new, all of our classes are virtual. So if you cannot tune in on March 23rd, still sign up because you can get the video replay and watch it on your own time. Or if you want to remake cards, you can watch it over and over again.
That's right.
All right. So thank you so much, Kris. And
thank you for watching.
All of you guys in Kris's class on March 23rd.
Bye.
Good night, everyone.